Chapter 500. The residence that the Qin country's people lived in was probably renovated, and the layout was somewhat different from the Ming Qi's residence. When Shan Miao entered, she was aware that this residence in Yinqing Lane was renovated by the Qin country, as it had the same style as the Qin country's palace, which was extremely luxurious. When Shan Miao entered, she was aware that this residence in Yinqing Lane was renovated by the Qin country, as it had the same style as the Qin country's palace, which was extremely luxurious. At that time when Shen Miao first went to the Qin country, she was envious when she saw that the palace was renovated so beautifully. Now thinking about it, the imperial family of the Qin country's preferences were really not flattering. As to rush to show that there was money, it was a cliché. After being led by the maid to the garden, Shen Miao finally saw Princess Ming and sat at a small stone table in the garden, and the stone table was covered with a silk handkerchief embroidered with butterflies. On top of it were a few plates of exquisite snacks and a pot of tea. Next to it was a small pond, and at this time of the year, the pond water had not frozen, and there were many red carps shaking their heads and tails in the pond. A few maids were sitting at the side, carrying small bowls to feed the fishes. Shen Miao stood in front of Princess Ming and bowed to Princess Ming and turned her head over. Among the three countries of Ming Qi, the Great Liang and the Qin country, it was an unquestionable fact that the Great Liang was the most powerful, and in comparison, the Ming Qi and the Qin country were much inferior. However, when comparing the Ming Qi and the Qin country was slightly better than the Ming Qi, because the Qin country's military was stronger. Perhaps it was because of the imperial family of the Ming Qi. The Fu family wanted to take back the military power to the imperial family, and dared not let it go. Thus, in these years, it was hard for the Ming Qi to produce any outstanding generals. For example, Shen Xian and Xieding. When these two people were not as good as they were in the past, the Ming Qi was unable to find other military families to replace their positions. Thus, for this tribute banquet, Emperor Wen Hui hurriedly summoned Shen Xian back, so that he would not lose face in front of other countries. Perhaps the Qin country knew that they could not compare to the Great Liang, but they were above the Ming Qi, and the Qin country's people always had a sense of superiority in front of the Ming Qi people. This kind of feeling was very annoying. In Shen Miao's previous lifetime, when she went to the Qin country, it seemed that even a little palace made in the Qin country's palace looked down on her. The royal family of the Qin kingdom did even more unseemly. It was as if by stepping on her dignity, one would be able to step on Ming Qi's dignity. At this moment, seeing Princess Ming, some memories from the previous lifetime came flooding in. Bin Gong invited you over today, and initially thought that you would not dare to come. One did not think that you actually came alone, and your guts are not small. Princess Ming glanced at Shen Miao, and her gaze suddenly became gloomy. Today she was wearing a gold-colored flower-washing gauze and a gold-plated red dress, and her makeup was also the best-looking linlang hairpin in the Qin country. But when she saw Shan Miao wearing a lilac-colored cloak and without any makeup, she paled in comparison. Princess Ming was actually very delicate and beautiful, and was a typical female of the Qin country's imperial family. Being pampered with gold and jade, there was a special delicacy about her. There were many types of temperament, and Shen Miao's appearance was delicate and gentle, but her temperament was eye-catching. Her dignified appearance made her not have a trace of softness, as if she was a female that had sat on a high throne for many years and was filled with an air of nobility. The princess must be joking. Shen Miao's expression did not change. The princess is a guest of the Ming Qi, and since Shen Miao was fortunate enough to be invited, how would one not keep the appointment? Jingzhe and Guyu stood behind Shen Miao, and Imoqing was stopped by the guards at the door, but Shen Miao did not say anything. Shen Miao was very clear about Princess Ming's temperament. Since Princess Ming had sent an invitation today, it was impossible for her to do anything dangerous. It was nothing more than using some means to make her suffer. When Shen Miao came, she was already prepared, but the suffering was not for nothing. She would definitely exaggerate Princess Ming's actions today by 10 times. Chapter 501. You have a glib mouth. Of course Bin Gong know that you have big guts, else you would not deliberately make Bin Gong look bad during the tribute banquet. Thinking of what happened during the tribute banquet, a trace of killing intent flashed in Princess Ming's eyes. One had to know that she was the most favored princess of the Qin kingdom. Even in the Qin kingdom's royal family, everyone had to fear her. She did not expect that when she arrived at the Ming Qi that was inferior to the Qin country, she was led by Shen Miao to faint at the tribute banquet. Thinking that she would not have any face left, Princess Ming could not wait to kill the person in front. If it was not for the fact that they were still in Ming Qi's territory and Huang Fuhao's warning, Princess Ming would have already let Shen Miao lose her life. She suddenly looked at Shen Miao and smiled. Bin Gong, see that your archery skills are outstanding and feel that the Qin country's palace lacks a sister like you. Why not make a request to your emperor to let you follow Bin Gong back to the Qin country? Shen Miao almost laughed. In the past and present lifetime, this Princess Ming seemed to be at odds with her, but these words seemed to have returned to the previous lifetime. When she was willing to go to the Qin country to be a hostage, Princess Ming also said the same thing to Fu Xiuyi. She said, "Your Majesty need not worry. Since it is Ming Qi's Empress, the Qin country will naturally treat her well and is Bin Gong's good sister." In the end, in the Qin country, the humiliation she suffered was no less than when she was in Ming Qi. After Shan Miao returned to the Qin country, she was able to fight with Mei Foreign in the inner palace for such a long time. Many things were due to the 5 years of experience in the Qin country, where she learnt to endure and hide. If your highness has this intention, just tell his majesty. Shen Miao smiled without a care. If your majesty agrees, this official's daughter can only follow your princess highness to the Qin country. Princess Ming wanted to ridicule and suppress Shan Miao, but did not think that Shan Miao would actually retort. Shen Miao was Shen Xian's precious daughter, and even if Emperor Wen Hui wanted to protect Shen Xian, he would not touch Shen Miao for the time being. She glared at Shen Miao. You? Shen Miao looked at her with a smile and did not speak. Don't worry, it would be too unfair for you to go back like this. Princess Ming coldly smiled and her eyes were filled with viciousness. Why not enter my crown prince's older brother's residence and be a concubine? Or become a side concubine? One think that the emperor of Ming Qi is also very willing. Shen Miao frowned slightly. If Ming Qi wanted to have a good relationship with the Qin country, a marriage was indeed a good method. If Princess Ming really managed to persuade Huang Fuhao, and Huang Fuhao proposed to marry Shen Miao back to be a Sufei, Emperor Wen Hui would also agree. No matter how unwilling Shen Xian was, he could not go against the entire country. Seeing that Shen Miao was slightly absent-minded, Princess Ming's lips hooked up into a sneer and suddenly gave a look to the maid beside Shen Miao. That maid suddenly stretched out her hand and pushed Shen Miao, who was standing at the side of the pond, into the pond. This time it was fierce and strong, and Shen Miao was caught off guard and fell into the pond. Jingjia and Guyu cried out in alarm, and when they wanted to come over to help, it was already too late. Shen Miao could almost feel the cold air from the water splashing on her clothes, but her lips were also ice cold. Princess Ming-An's methods were nothing more than this. Since one was unable to really hurt her today, one must let Shen Miao suffer a bit. This kind of result was almost what Shen Miao could predict. Shen Miao fell into the water with a plop sound. She knew how to swim, and even though the water in early winter was cold, it was not to the extent that she could not move. But she heard another plop sound beside her, and at first she thought that she had heard wrongly. When she popped her head out, she saw that the water was also splashing, and that rolling golden color. If it was not Princess Ming-An, who else could it be? Princess Ming-An's screams almost pierced one's ears. She did not seem to know how to swim as she screamed, "Someone come! Someone come!" Chapter 502. Princess Ming-An's maids also panicked when they saw this, and one after another went to look for bamboo poles to save people. Those who knew how to swim were all guards, but the guards were all males. Princess Ming-An was of noble birth, and one feared that if one were to touch her body, their heads would be seen the next day. Thus no one came forward to save her. Moreover, the place where Princess Ming-An fell into the water was just too far away. Shen Miao was pushed into the pond and fell from the side of the pond, so the place where she fell was not far from the side of the pond. But Princess Ming-An was perfectly fine, but she actually fell directly into the middle of the pond, and even the bamboo poles could not reach her. Shen Miao looked at this comical look and actually felt that it was somewhat funny. But now was not the time to watch the show in the water, and when everyone was in a flurry, she was leisurely swimming towards the pond. When she swam to the edge of the pond, Jingzhe and Guyu were already pulling her up in a panic. Halfway through, one heard an angry shout. "What is going on here?" One saw two males walking in from outside the garden. One of them was wearing a golden robe and a jade crown on his head. His face was so gloomy that it seemed as though water was about to drip out, and destroyed his handsome appearance by 30%. The other person was wearing a golden purple robe, a black cloak, and a half-silver mask that covered his face. But it did not change his heroic appearance, and followed Huang Fu Hao's footsteps unhurriedly. "Replying to your highness, the princess has fallen into the water," those servants quickly reported. Seeing the crowd of servants in a flurry, Huang Fu Hao took a deep breath and subconsciously looked at Prince Rue's expression. But Prince Rue was wearing a mask, and the lips under the mask were slightly hooked, so who could see clearly what he was thinking at the moment. He shouted at the guards behind him in a deep voice, "Hurry up and go." That guard's expression stiffened, but he was helpless and flew towards the pond. Most likely he knew how to swim and had some martial arts skills, as he immediately fished the drenched Princess Ming into the shore. Princess Ming choked on a lot of water, and the first thing she did when she came ashore was to scream at Shan Miao. "This slut pushed me into the water. Crown Prince's older brother. Help me kill her." Princess Ming was also flustered and exasperated that such words could be said in front of everyone. Huang Fu Hao was shocked and opened his mouth to stop her. "Ming." Princess Ming was surprised for a moment, and only then did she see that Prince Rue was still standing beside Huang Fu Hao. She was startled, and then her face turned red with anger. To be in such a sorry state in front of such a peerless man. If there was a hole in the ground, Princess Ming could not wait to drill into it. And all of this was thanks to Shen Miao. Jingzhe could not hold back and retorted for Shen Miao. "Your Princess Highness words are unreasonable. It was obviously my young lady who fell into the water first. So how could she free her hands to push your Princess Highness? My young lady is not an immortal, so how would she have the ability to have 3 heads and 6 arms? Who do you think you are? Dare to speak to Bingong like this?" Princess Ming did not get angry but laughed instead. "Your meaning is that Bingong is slandering Shen Miao? Guards, capture this lowly servant girl who's spouting nonsense for this consort." Shen Miao smiled coldly and blocked Jingzhe behind her. "Your Princess Highness is a Qin country's people and Jingzhou is my people. This is Ming Qi. So since when can the Qin country's people behave atrociously in Ming Qi's land?" She used the words behave atrociously, and it could be said that she was not polite at all. Even Huang Fu Hao could not help but take another look at her. "You are presumptuous," Princess Ming shouted. This official's daughter does not feel that she is presumptuous. Shen Miao's imposing manner was not weak at all. She was not the Empress Shun who swallowed insults and humiliation in the Qin country. Moreover, if one could not even protect a maid, then one would have lived in vain in this lifetime. For someone like Princess Ming who relied on her identity to behave atrociously, one did not even need to use one's brain to deal with her. Chapter 503. This was the residence of the Qin country, and Princess Ming An's servants had already sent a cloak over to cover Princess Ming An's drenched body. But Shen Miao did not. When she came, her lilac cloak was already drenched and almost stuck to her body. Even if Jingzhe and Guyu wanted to use their bodies to block her, it was not possible. Huang Fu Hao stared at Shen Miao and was somewhat presumptuous. Just at this moment, one saw Prince Rue chuckling and suddenly took off his black cloak and lightly threw it on Shan Miao's body, covering Shan Miao tightly. This action could not help but make the surrounding people surprised for a moment. This Prince Rue of the Great Liang had always been a loner since he came to the Ding capital, and did not have any friendship with Ming Qi, and also did not deliberately make friends with the Qin country, but inexplicably helped Shen Miao out of trouble. Huang Fu Hao's gaze towards Shen Miao was deep in thought, but Princess Ming was biting her lips in jealousy. Jingzhe and Guyu helped Shen Miao to stand up. Princess Ming could no longer hold back. "It was obviously you who pushed Bingong down. If it was not you, how would Bingong fall into the lake without rhyme or reason? Could it be that it was my servants who pushed Bingong?" Shen Miao smiled. Even though her hair was completely drenched, her calm and magnanimous expression was much more dignified compared to the flustered and exasperated Princess Ming. She said, This official servant had already explained for this official servant. This official servant fell into the water first. So how could one push your Princess Highness? Perhaps it was your Princess Highness who accidentally slipped. Princess Mingyan angrily said, if Bin Gong slipped by herself, how could one fall into the middle of the pond? That would be a coincidence. Shun Miao said in an indifferent manner, this official servant is also not a warrior with infinite strength, and really cannot push Princess to the middle of the pond. A chuckle suddenly escaped, and everyone looked up to see that Prince Rui's lips hooking up. Even though he was smiling, one could not see the expression under the mask, making one feel somewhat unfathomable. Princess Mingyan clenched her teeth and looked towards Prince Rui. Since your highness is here, one is not a Ming Qi person nor a Qin country person. May your highness come and preside over justice and see who is lying between Bin Gong and Shun Miao. When Huang Fu Hao wanted to stop Princess Mingyan, it was already too late. Huang Fu Hao's heart was filled with rage. Princess Mingyan was arrogant and willful, but did not have any brains. Even though he knew that Princess Mingyan was here for Shun Miao, he did not expect that Princess Mingyan would use such a stupid method. If it was not good, Shun Miao would use the trick of injuring herself to gain confidence, and Princess Mingyan would not end up well. What was even more coincidental was that Prince Rui of the Great Liang suddenly came over for a visit, and saw this chaotic scene. Huang Fu Hao simply wanted to strangle Princess Ming, and Shen Miao's eyes hung down, but Princess Mingyan looked up at him with a face of hope. Huang Fu Hao's face was somewhat awkward and Prince Rui's lips hooked up. Why should this prince care about these trivial matters? Princess Mingyan was surprised for a moment, and Shun Miao secretly rolled her eyes. Your residence is quite lively. One could not tell if Prince Rui's words were sarcasm, but that light tone suddenly made Huang Fu Hao unhappy. He glanced at Shen Miao, who was wearing Prince Rui's cloak, and suddenly smiled. Today was only a misunderstanding. One did not expect that young Lady Shen would be implicated because of this. Bin Gong will apologize to young Lady Shun on behalf of my younger sister, and hope that young Lady Shun would not take it to heart. Older Prince. Princess Mingyan did not expect that Huang Fu Hao would actually give in to Shen Miao, and her heart was anxious as she shouted out in dissatisfaction. But she was coldly glared at by Huang Fu Hao, and dared not make a sound. But the gaze that she looked at Shun Miao was filled with jealousy and hatred. Shin Miao looked at Huang Fu Hao and lightly said, since His Highness the Crown Prince has spoken, this official's daughter would not dare to disobey. These tolerant words were said reluctantly, as if it was very forced. This made the fire in Princess Mingyan's heart rise again. Huang Fu Hao was also startled and looked meaningfully at Shin Miao. Chapter 504. Shin Miao lowered her eyes and restrained the myriad of emotions in her eyes. Huang Fu Hao, this person, on the surface looked magnanimous and polite, but in fact he was very ruthless. This kind of ruthlessness was different from Fu Xiuyi's ruthlessness and was something that could not be concealed. Initially, when she was in the Qin country, there was one time when Huang Fu Hao was drunk and wanted to humiliate her. If it was not for Gu Yu, who risked her life to protect her innocence, one feared that when she returned to the Ming Qi palace, the first thing that awaited her was a piece of white silk. The imperial family of Ming Qi would not allow an unchaste empress. Even so, because Gu Yu offended Huang Fu Hao used his guard sword to stab her to death. Shin Miao would never be able to forget that Huang Fu Hao's sword had pierced several holes in Gu Yu's body and blood kept flowing out. But Huang Fu Hao ordered people to throw Gu Yu's body into the wolf pack. She could not do anything. She had lost her dearest person in the Qin country and could not even collect Gu Yu's corpse. If one were to say that towards Princess Mingyan, Shun Miao had some disgust, but towards Huang Fu Hao, it was a blood feud. She just didn't have a way to make Huang Fu Hao pay the price. Huang Fu Hao's gaze became more and more suspicious, and in the instant that Shen Miao's eyes closed, he seemed to have detected some kind of obvious emotion that made his body feel cold. He didn't understand what it was, but he instinctively wanted to find out. Just as she wanted to speak, Prince Rui suddenly moved sideways. His stature was extremely tall and straight, and the petite Shan Miao was almost unable to be seen when he blocked her. Today is not the right time to come. Prince Rui swept a glance at Huang Fu Hao and Princess Mingyan. It was obvious that one could not see his expression, but both of them felt that Prince Rui's eyes were somewhat cold. He continued, Come back another day. Huang Fu Hao originally wanted to persuade a few words. The current situation was still unclear. No matter what, the Qin country did not want to be enemies with the Great Liang. If this represented that Prince Rui of the Great Liang would show a little bit of closeness to their Qin country, the Qin country would naturally be happy to see it. One thought that one would be able to get close to Prince Rui today, but one did not think that it would all be ruined by Princess Ming. He fiercely glared at Princess Ming and helplessly said, "It is Bin Gong's poor hospitality. When your highness comes again, Bin Gong will definitely entertain you with great hospitality." Prince Rui chuckled, but no one knew what it meant. He turned around and was about to leave, but suddenly stopped his footsteps and looked at Shen Miao with a smile that was not a smile. "Since young Lady Shen is also drenched, it is better to return to the residence earlier. Are you willing to return with this prince?" Shen Miao took a deep breath and broke into a smile. "Many thanks to your highness, Prince Rui." Huang Fu Hao and Princess Ming watched as both of them brushed their sleeves and left. Princess Ming almost bit her lips until they broke. Crown Prince older brother, that slut is seducing Prince Rui. She even pushed me into the water. I can't just let this go. Shut up, idiot. Huang Fu Hao looked at her coldly and warned, "Bin Gong will let you off this time for today's matter. If there is a next time and you mess things up, when Imperial Father blames you, Bin Gong will not be able to protect you." Turning around, he flicked his sleeves and left. After being lectured by Huang Fu Hao, Princess Ming did not dare to retort, but her hatred towards Shen Miao deepened by another level. Especially when she saw the back view of both of them leaving, it made her heart feel as if it was being cut by a knife. She had always been willful and selfish, but with her beauty and golden branches and jade leaves, there was never a male that caught her eye. It was not easy to find a male that caught her eye, but he seemed to take care of Shen Miao. How could she endure it? Princess Ming clenched her fists and said hatefully, "Shen Miao, Bin Gong will definitely make you wish you were dead." Outside the residence in the Qin country, Shen Miao's horse carriage was still parked at the entrance. Seeing Shen Miao appearing with an unfamiliar male's cloak draped over her, and her hair dripping wet, Emo Qing suddenly became nervous. "Young lady." Chapter 505. No harm. Shen Miao waved her hands and said, "Return to the residence first." This prince helped young Lady Shen, but young Lady Shen did not even say a word of thanks. This is too heartless. Prince Rui crossed his arms and spoke unhurriedly, making Jingzha and the rest surprised for a moment. Shen Miao looked at him coldly. "Is Prince Rui playing happily today? That depends on whether you are happy or not." He laughed. Even with a mask, Shen Miao could see the vile expression of this person in front of her. "Princess Ming falling into the water was done by you?" She leaned close to Xie Jingxing and whispered, "Why did you do that?" Xie Jingxing looked down at her. She was petite, and when Xie Jingxing wanted to whisper to her, he had to bend down slightly. When their eyes were at eye level, it seemed a little too intimate and could be considered as ambiguous. His voice was low and sweet with a slight teasing. "What thing is she to bully you?" After pausing, Xie Jingxing stared at Shen Miao and said, "Am I not your person? It is reasonable to help you." Shen Miao suddenly took a step back and distanced herself from him before saying indifferently, "Then many thanks to you. Thanking is not something that can be done with just words." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. This prince needs to think about it. Shen Miao was too lazy to speak more with him and boarded the carriage without a second word. Emo Qing was worried that Shen Miao would catch a cold and rushed towards the Shen mansion without stopping, and very quickly disappeared from the alley. Looking at the distance where the carriage could no longer be seen, a tall male suddenly appeared behind Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing's eyes turned cold as he said, "Go check if Huang Fu Hao had ever been to the Ding capital before." The male bowed his head and left. Xie Jingxing turned his head and looked at the main doors of Prince Qin's residence. His lips hooked up, but there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. On the way back to the residence, Jingzha and Guyu did not dare to speak. No one expected that Shen Miao would be so difficult when she went out today. This Princess Ming's guts was just too big. She even dared to push someone into the water in broad daylight. Jingzha's eyes were red. At that critical moment, she did not care about the other party's identity. Now thinking about it, that person was after all the princess of the Qin country, and she was just a lowly servant. If the other party really wanted to do anything to her, Jingzhe herself would not be able to do anything. Only now did she remember that she was afraid. Xin Miao, on the other hand, was in a calm mood. She had long known that Princess Mingyan did not have good intentions, but because of the overall situation, even if no one came today, when Princess Mingyan arrived, she would get people to fish her out of the water and would not really take her life. One did not expect that a fiend would suddenly appear and push Princess Mingyan into the water. Naturally, this was Xie Jingxing's tricks. Xie Jingxing was lawless and had no regard for anyone, and even schemed against Princess Mingyan in front of Huang Fu Hao. Perhaps when Huang Fu Hao thought about it later, he would also realize that something was wrong. After all, Princess Mingyan fell to the middle of the pond, and if one did not have martial arts, how would one be able to do it? And the only outsider who knew martial arts was Xie Jingxing. Even if one did not know if it was done by Xie Jingxing, one would always have some suspicions. But Xin Miao's eyes slightly moved. Xie Jingxing's move made Princess Mingyan to be in such a sorry state, and it really made one feel refreshed. If there was no Xie Jingxing today, even if she was in the right, she would still suffer. Now that she was in the right, she would still suffer, but seeing that Princess Mingyan was beaten up, she felt that the suffering was worth it. Jingzhe and Guyu looked at Xin Miao with some worry, but one did not know what Xin Miao was thinking about, and the corner of her lips slightly rose, as if she was somewhat happy. Both of them looked at each other and were somewhat at a loss. They did not know how Xin Miao would be happy after being pushed into the water by others. When they returned to the Xin mansion, because Xin Miao was dripping wet, she could only sneak in from the back door. Jingzhe quickly took a handkerchief to wipe Xin Miao's hair and helped her change into a clean set of clothes. Guyu then instructed the kitchen to boil ginger tea. Xin Miao sat for a while before asking, "Why do I not see Bai Lu and Shuangjiang?" Before she left, she let Bai Lu and Shuangjiang stay in the residence to wait for news, but there was no one at the moment. Just as she was speaking, one saw Bai Lu returning from outside. When she saw Xin Miao, she was pleasantly surprised. "Young lady has finally returned." Just now Foreign asked this servant, "Where did young lady go? And why is one not back yet? What is the matter with mother?" Xin Miao finally managed to dry her hair and asked when she heard that. One heard that the daughter of old general's benefactor came knocking. Foreign is outside chatting with that young lady and wanted young lady to go and take a look. Xin Miao's hand that was holding the handkerchief paused and her gaze turned sharp. "What is that person's name?" Bai Lu was surprised for a moment and felt that Xin Miao's gaze was somewhat cold and subconsciously replied, "One heard that it is surnamed Chong." Chapter 506. Ever since Shan Xian's family returned to the capital, this was the first time someone visited the newly bought residence. Luo Shuiyin sat in the main room and was talking to a young female. When Xin Miao arrived, Luo Shuiyin was drinking tea with that female, and one did not know what they were talking about, but Luo Shuiyin had a very happy appearance. Both of them were chatting happily and did not even discover that Xin Miao had arrived. It was Luo Tan who was sitting at the side picking up snacks to eat that warmly greeted her when she saw Xin Miao. "By youngest sister, today there is a new snack with milk added. Do you want to try it?" Xin Miao smiled and shook her head before walking to Luo Shuiyan's side. Her eyes landed on that young female and asked, "Mother, this is..." That young female quickly stood up. She was wearing a pea green robe and did not have any extra jewelry. There was only a wooden hairpin that was loosely inserted into her hair bun, and there was a plain silver bracelet on her wrist. This could be considered a somewhat shabby attire, but there was a faint scholarly aura between this woman's brows. Although her appearance could only be considered beautiful, there was a kind of elegance that would not be belittled, and it was pleasing to the eye. "This is the daughter of your grandfather's benefactor, called Chang Zaiqing." Most likely Jiao Jiao had not seen her before. Luo Shuiyin smiled. "Younger sister Qing, this is our residence's young lady, Jiao Jiao." Xin Miao gently smiled and nodded her head. "Qing Yi?" Luo Shuiyin pulled Chang Zaiqing to sit down and let Xin Miao snuggle up to her as she said with a smile, "What Qing Yi?" Younger sister Qing is born so young, and calling Qing Yi is considered old. If younger sister Qing does not say your age, I would think that you are not much older than Jiao Jiao. Even if you go out like this, No one would say anything wrong if Jiao Jiao calls you older sister. Furin must not make fun of me, Chang Ziqing said with a smile. Luo Tan smiled as she looked at Shen Miao. Bao youngest sister, Qingyi has come to the Ding capital, and in the future one can often come to the residence as a guest. One heard that she likes to play chess and read books. I do not understand those, but in the future you will have a playmate. Shen Miao smiled. Luo Tan had always been a straightforward person. Perhaps the Luo family's people were this sincere, like Luo Shuiyin and Luo Tan, who treated others warmly. Shen Miao raised her eyes to look at Chang Ziqing. Even so, it was not an easy thing to please Luo Shuiyin, especially because the members of the Luo family were all military generals and civil officials had never seen eye to eye. The more outspoken Luo Shuiyin and Luo Tan were, the more impatient they were with those who only knew how to play with words. But in just half a day's time, Luo Shuiyin and Chang Ziqing addressed each other as sisters, and actually liked Chang Ziqing very much. Shen Miao's gaze became somewhat cold. Seeing that Shen Miao did not speak, Luo Shuiyin pulled Shen Miao's hand and said, "Why is Jiao Jiao's hand so cold? Recently it is cold outside, and it is better not to catch a cold." Jingzhe and Guyu lowered their heads uncomfortably at the back. Shen Miao returned to the residence to change her clothes and just finished drinking the ginger soup. Upon hearing that there was a guest, she rushed over and did not have a good rest. Luo Shuiyin did not know that something happened to Shen Miao at Princess Mingyan's place today, and both of them had a guilty conscience. It's winter these few days, so it's naturally very cold. In my hometown, there is a kind of medicinal pouch that is filled with some cold-repelling spices. When one sleeps at night, it is hung at the head of the bed, so that it would be warm the next day. If fifth young lady does not mind, I will make a few and send them over. Chang Ziqing said with a smile. Younger sister Qing can even do this? Luo Shuiyin smiled. It is said that the females in the Lu province are clever and dexterous. I had never seen it before, but now seeing younger sister Qing, one would know. Unlike the young ladies in our residence, she glanced at Luo Tan and Shen Miao and pretended to sigh helplessly. Not to mention medicinal pouches, they do not even know how to embroider a handkerchief. Chapter 507. Shen Miao did not like to do needlework and only felt that it was a waste of time. Needless to say about Luo Tan, he clearly had the temperament of a male. Luo Tan pouted. Youngest Gu. Not to mention me and youngest Biao sister, aren't you the same? Luo Shuiyin was at a loss for words. She glared at Luo Tan. Is Aunt Qing from Liuzhou? Shen Miao tilted her head to look at her and asked with a smile. The Lu province is not near to the Ding capital. What is the purpose of coming to the Ding capital this time? Chang Ziqing's face immediately showed some embarrassment, and Luo Shuiyin quickly diverted the topic. Nothing much, just came to the Ding capital to play for a few days. Shen Miao smiled. Then where is Qingyi resting at now? Chang Ziqing smiled. Now he is resting in the Shun residence. Shen Miao lightly said, Oh, it was originally resting at grandmother's place. She said, Since Aunt Qing's father is grandfather's benefactor, I believe that grandmother will take good care of Aunt Qing. This is reassuring. Even though Luo Shuiyin felt that with old Shen Foran's temperament, she would not be that considerate towards Chang Ziqing, but Shen Miao's words made Luo Shuiyin's heart warm up a little. She said, That's true. Chang Ziqing's smile slightly stiffened. But one heard Shen Miao saying, Qingyi originally lived in the Lu province. I heard that the Lu province is very fun, but unfortunately I have never been there before. But when you were in Guangwentang, there was a classmate whose hometown was in the Lu province. Perhaps you two know each other. The Chang family is a small family. Chang Ziqing lowered her head and said, One fear that fifth young lady's classmate do not know of the Chang family. No matter how small the Chang family is, with an outstanding person like Aunt Qing, they will not be unknown. Shen Miao smiled casually, but for Qingyi to come to the Ding capital like this, Qingyi's husband did not follow? Chang Ziqing's expression became even more awkward. Luo Shuiyin smiled. Jiao Jiao, do not speak nonsense. Younger sister Qing is still unmarried. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment and looked at Chang Ziqing before asking. One do not know how old is Qingyi this year? To ask an unmarried young lady's age, especially when Chang Ziqing was not young. These words were somewhat abrupt. Even Luo Tan, who had a thick brain, stopped eating the pastries and looked at Shan Miao strangely. Shan Miao usually understood the rules and had proper etiquette, so why would she say such rude words today? Song Zaiqing, however, spoke calmly without any trace of awkwardness. 26 this year. Shan Miao widened her eyes at the right time. It seemed that she was trying to cover it up. Soon she smiled and said, "If Aunt Qing didn't say this, I would have thought that you were only 18 or 19 years old. How enviable." Even though she said it like that, the gaze that she used to size up Song Zaiqing was somewhat meaningful, making one feel that there was no evil intention, but it did not make one happy. Chang Zaiqing smiled gently and did not speak anymore. Luo Shuiyan smiled. Younger sister Qing is such a good person. Would one be afraid of not finding a good husband? I do not know about the males in the Lu province, but the number of outstanding males in the Ding capital is uncountable. If younger sister Qing were to stay here longer, perhaps one would meet a true person. Song Zaiqing quickly smiled and waved her hands, telling Luo Shuiyan not to tease her. After talking for a while, seeing that the sky was gradually getting dark, Shen Xian, Shen Xiu, and Luo Ling should be returning from the Ministry of War. Thus Song Zaiqing got up to leave. Luo Shuiyan urged her to stay. "Master, Qiu'er and Linger will be returning soon. Why not have a meal together before leaving? If Master were to see you, he would definitely be very happy." "No need." Song Zaiqing smiled gently. When the sky gets dark, it would not be easy to walk. Qing Xian appreciates foreign's good intentions and will visit again in the future. Let's forget about today. It is already somewhat late. Chapter 508. Luo Shuiyan took a look outside and it was indeed nightfall, so she pulled her hands and said, "Since that is the case, then it is not good for me to keep you, lest the roads are slippery at night. It is just that seeing you today made me feel like old friends at first sight and was exceptionally happy. You must come again another day, as it is very interesting to talk to you. It has been a long time since one met such a congenial person." Song Zaiqing smiled. One dare not decline foreign's hospitality and can only respectfully comply. Luo Shuiyan instructed people to prepare a horse carriage for Song Zaiqing, and Shan Miao and Luo Tan followed behind. Luo Tan sighed. Even though this Qingyi came from a small family in the Lu province, her etiquette is more thorough than those in the palace. She is also gentle and kind. One really did not think that she would not be married at such an age. One do not know who would be lucky enough to marry her. Shen Miao looked at Song Zaiqing's back and did not speak. When Luo Tan saw this, she suddenly whispered in Shen Miao's ear, "Biao youngest sister, do you not like this Qingyi?" Shen Miao was somewhat surprised as she did not expect that Luo Tan, with such a thick brain, could see her likes and dislikes. She raised her eyebrows. "She and I have no enmity, so why would I not like her?" "Heh, others could not see it, but I am very clear," Luo Tan said proudly. "You this person. On the surface you treat everyone well, but it is all indifferent. But today you asked Qingyi a lot of things, and moreover there were places where you were disrespectful. How would you make such a mistake? It was clearly intentional. Moreover, the way you look at her was somewhat strange and different from how you look at others." Shen Miao laughed in spite of herself. "You are thinking too much?" "I did not think too much. You are clearly like that." Luo Tan continued. "But even though this Qing Yi is good and youngest Gu likes her the moment she arrived, she is straightforward and sincere, but one always feel that something is not right." "What is not right?" Shen Miao asked. "Think about it. That Qing Yi's father is old General Shen's subordinate and also a benefactor, so he must be a valiant general. A tiger father does not have a dog daughter. Even if you look gentle all day long, but deep down you are like Gu Fu, very valiant and not afraid of the Tu Ju. But this Aunt Qing, her temperament is too gentle. Although she is candid and not bashful, why doesn't she have the air of a general?" Song Zaiqing's lips sneered, and there was no trace of a military family's aura. Wrong. Song Zaiqing was more like a young lady from a military family than anyone else. She had studied the art of war to the point of perfection and quietly advanced step by step. One could not see Song Zaiqing's hostility, but it was because her acting was superb. Shen Miao looked at Luo Tan and did not correct Luo Tan's evaluation of her, valiant. She only said, Who says that a military family must be valiant? This Qingyi grew up in the Lu province, and it is possible that Changforen is also from a scholarly family. Qingyi is just following her mother's character. Luo Tan pursed her lips. Maybe. Actually, I quite like her. But if you don't like her, I won't like her either. I'll be with you. Shen Miao said. Many thanks to you. But why do you not like her? Luo Tan asked curiously. Jealous that she knows more than you? Shen Miao swept a glance at Song Ziqing, who was being sent up the horse carriage by Luo Shuiyan, and a trace of coldness flashed in her eyes. How could it be? I can't wait to be happy to have such an intelligent person. Not long after Song Ziqing left, Shen Xian and entourage returned. Luo Shuiyan told her about Song Ziqing's matters. Shen Xian was first surprised and then somewhat lamented. When old General Shen was alive, he often mentioned Chang Hu, this loyal and brave soldier, to Shen Xian, and the Shen family was particular about gratitude. It was just that after old General Shen's death, the Chang family moved to the Lu province, and there was no news of them for many years. One did not think that they would suddenly appear today. Shen Xian had seen Song Ziqing before, and at that time Song Ziqing was still a young lady. He said that if Song Ziqing had any difficulties, he could help. Chapter 509. Chang Ziqing naturally had her difficulties, but these words could not be said in front of the juniors. After the meal, Luo Shuiyan quickly pulled Shen Xian back to the room, most likely to talk to him about Chang Ziqing's matter. These few days Shen Xiu was busy with the matters of the capital, and even Luo Ling, who had just arrived at the Ministry of War, was very busy. Thus both of them would gather together to talk about matters. As for Luo Tan, she was tired after playing outside for a day and returned to her room early to rest. In the middle of the night, only Shen Miao's room was lit in the entire Shen residence. Jingzhe and Guyu had long been sent out to sleep by Shen Miao, and when the two maids saw that Shen Miao did not have the intention to rest, they thought that she was worried about Princess Mingyan's matter today. After everyone had left, Shen Miao rubbed her forehead, and the book in front of her did not move for a long time. She was not worried at all about Princess Mingyan's matter. Huang Fuhao had lost face in front of Xie Jingxing, and that was to warn Princess Mingyan. So in the recent days, Princess Mingyan would be more peaceful. What made her vexed was Chang Ziqing, who came to visit the Shen residence today. That day when she went to the Fengxian pawn shop to probe Jiu Shu, she saw a figure on the way back. At that time her heart was shocked, and when she looked again, she had already disappeared from the crowd. Originally Shen Miao thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her, but now thinking about it, it was the truth. At that time she saw Chang Ziqing. Some things had already changed, but one did not know if it was fate for some people to appear at this time. Shen Xian's branch, from the beginning to the collapse, other than the military power, the more important thing was the departure of the people in the residence. Shen Xian was a person who did not admit defeat, and his bravery on the battlefield made him fearless towards any problems that might appear. But at the end he was forced into a desperate situation by Fu Xiuyi, and a large part of it was not only because of Fu Xiuyi's suppression. Shen Xiu died because of Jing Chu Chu, and Chang Ziqing's appearance made Luo Shuiyan lose her life. It was true that Luo Shuiyan was from the Lu province, and in the previous lifetime, not long after this time, Luo Shuiyan also appeared in front of the Shen family. At that time the Shen residents had not separated yet. Song Ziqing was gentle and generous, and her style of conversation was well organized. Everyone in the Shen residence liked her, including Luo Shuiyan. Luo Shuiyan was a military general, and in the entire Shen residence, Runwan Yuan was too slick and Chen Roqiu was very aloof. Even though on the surface she was amiable, it was impossible for Luo Shuiyan's character to be close to them. It was this Chang Ziqing who appeared not long ago, and Luo Shuiyan was very close to her. Shen Miao previously felt that Chang Ziqing was definitely a good person. At that time she was already married to Fu Xiuyi and came back a few times to see Chang Ziqing and talked to Chang Ziqing happily. Chang Ziqing was a person who was very clever with her words, and whenever she met Chen Roqiu, she would talk about poetry with her. With Luo Shuiyan she would talk about the art of war, and with Shen Miao, she would talk about how to please one's husband. She was considerate towards others and was always able to come up with strategies. Thus Shen Miao liked her very much. Afterwards, it was found out that Chang Ziqing was not married at the age of 26 because a young master of a large family in the Lu province had threatened to make her a concubine. That family had a big business, and no one in the Lu province dared to provoke them. So no matter how outstanding Chang Ziqing was, no one dared to take the risk of becoming enemies with that family and go to the Chang family to propose marriage. After so many years, that family's actions became more and more excessive, and Chang Ziqing had no choice but to enter the Ding capital to seek shelter from her father's old friend. Shun Miao was very sympathetic towards Chang Ziqing's bitter experience. Such an intelligent and blue-hearted person was unable to marry a good person to rely on. She originally thought that Chang Ziqing would continue to stay in the Shun residence as a guest until Qin Roqiu took out a marriage certificate. It was actually the marriage certificate between Shun Xian and Chang Ziqing. Most likely it was written by old General Shen and Chang Hu, but the time was too long and everyone was not clear about the situation, so it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a joke. Chapter 5:10. But this marriage certificate at the end caused some things to change. One did not know who said that Chang Ziqing had not married for so many years, not only because of the coercion of the sons of the wealthy families, but also because of Shen Xian's chastity. But Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan had a deep relationship, thus this marriage certificate was somewhat awkward. At that time, Chang Ziqing knelt in front of Luo Shuiyan and said that she did not have any other thoughts toward Shen Xian. That marriage certificate was just a joke of the elders, and she did not take it to heart. For the rest of her life, she only wished to live quietly and did not want to think about anything else. As for marrying, she had long given up on it. If the Shin family felt that it was inconvenient for her, she could go and find a temple to cut her hair and become a nun, and would definitely not disturb the Shin family. A perfectly fine young lady came over to seek shelter, and moreover she was the daughter of a benefactor. How could one let others become a nun at the end? Everyone in the Shin family tried to persuade, especially Qin Roqiu and Ren Wanyun. At the end one did not know why, but old Shen Foreign actually suggested for Shen Xian to take Chang Ziqing as a concubine. Naturally, Shen Xian was not willing. His own inner courtyard was clean, so what was the matter with one more female? Chang Ziqing was also not willing, but the one who finally agreed was actually Luo Shuiyan. Luo Shuiyan was a person who could not tolerate sand in her eyes and had the fiercest character. At the beginning when she married Shen Xian, her request was that Shen Xian's inner courtyard would only be her. Shen Xian had indeed done it, but he would take the initiative to request his husband to take in Chang Ziqing. And under Chang Ziqing's helplessness, she could only agree. But she said that it was only in the name of a Yinyang and would not fulfill the duties of a Yinyang. The reason why she agreed was to solve some worries in the future. She still did not do anything on normal days. At that time, Shen Miao felt that Chang Ziqing was very reasonable. How could there be such a kind person in the world? As a Yinyang, she would not split favors, and was content with her place only because of the name. When Shen Miao was in Prince Ding's residence, the concubines that the officials sent over would always make her upset, but Chang Ziqing was extremely dependable. Chang Ziqing became Shen Xian's concubine in name, just like that, and indeed did not have any friendship with Shen Xian and looked like siblings. She had a good relationship with Luo Shuiyan and was initially somewhat worried, but later Shen Miao felt that it was not bad. Not long after, Luo Shuiyan was pregnant, and Chang Ziqing took care of her all day long. But one did not know why Luo Shuiyan had a miscarriage in her own courtyard. After the miscarriage, she was depressed all day and soon died of illness. Shen Xian was in so much pain that his hair almost turned white overnight. With Luo Shuiyan's death, Shen Xian seemed to lose his vitality and rapidly aged. Later on, when they were plotted against by Fu Xiu-yi, they did not even have the strength to fight back and were even taken advantage of by the second and third households. What Shen Miao hated the most was Chang Ziqing's methods. Not to mention that Luo Shuiyan had a miscarriage for no reason at that time. But Shen Miao knew that Luo Shuiyan was a female general, so how would she become haggard and die of depression in just one night? The only person who was always by Luo Shuiyan's side and was able to speak to Luo Shuiyan was Chang Ziqing, so this matter was inextricably linked to Chang Ziqing. At that time, Shen Xian also sent people to investigate, but could not find any clues. Chang Ziqing was innocent. Ever since Luo Shuiyan's death, Shen Xian did not remarry and Chang Ziqing still occupied the name of Yinyang. It was just that the first household of the Shen residents needed a female to take care of everything. So Chang Ziqing let nature take its course and became the foreign of the first household in the eyes of the servants. She was gentle and did not reveal any emotions and quickly won over the hearts of the servants, giving her the bearing of a matriarch of the household. This was the most terrifying part that Xin Miao felt. Chang Ziqing was very smart. She knew that Shen Xian's heart could not tolerate other females, and she did not want to capture Shen Xian's heart. So she started on Luo Shuiyan's body and swindled Luo Shuiyan's trust, making Luo Shuiyan see her as a relative and then ruthlessly stab her in the back. Words could hurt people, and for a person like Chang Ziqing, as long as she unintentionally said a few words, it would be able to make Luo Shuiyan suffer. When Luo Shuiyan was bedridden, Chang Ziqing did not know how many comforting words that could kill people. Chapter 511. It did not matter if Shen Xian did not acknowledge Chang Ziqing because from the beginning to the end, Chang Ziqing wanted the eyes of outsiders. Once Luo Shuiyan died, she would be Shen Xian's only woman and would be Shen foreign. She would not have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of her life. Chang Ziqing was the most realistic person, and she never went to pursue those ethereal feelings. She was an infuriating woman, sober and intelligent. If there were no accidents, perhaps Chang Ziqing would live on as a victim and Xin Miao would even feel that she was a pitiful woman. But the paper could not wrap up the fire. 2 years after Luo Shuiyan's death, Chang Ziqing's husband and son in the Lu province came knocking. Yes, it was Chang Ziqing's husband and son. A gambling addict husband and a sick son. Chang Ziqing had married a long time ago, and perhaps at that time both parties were in love with each other, but a poor couple had 100 sorrows. Chang Ziqing was such a proud and arrogant person. How could she tolerate growing peonies in a mud basin for the rest of her life? With the money, she abandoned her husband and son and found an excuse to head to the Ding capital. Her husband inquired for a long time before he found out that Chang Ziqing was now in the Ding capital and had become Shen Xian's concubine, so he brought his son to visit. The people of the world were in an uproar. Chang Ziqing was so gentle and elegant, but she could even abandon her sick son. It could be seen that she was not as kind as she looked on the surface. Moreover, she was full of lies, which made people call her evil. Chang Ziqing was taken away, but Shen Xian became the joke of the Ding capital. After raising someone else's wife for so many years, could this be considered as wearing a green hat? Xin Miao closed her eyes. The past was like a fleeting cloud. She had always been on guard against the day when the past would repeat itself, but she didn't expect it to be too late. Chang Ziqing appeared and was exactly the same as in the previous lifetime. She quickly made Luo Shuiyan feel close to her. In terms of acting, Shen Miao had seen 2 powerful females. One was Chang Ziqing and the other was Mei Foreign. It was just that Mei Foreign would be somewhat free and unrestrained to reveal her true nature, but because Chang Ziqing was too careful, one would not be able to catch a single handle on her. But this lifetime was not the past lifetime. Xin Miao would not let Chang Ziqing live well no matter what. As for how to make good use of this chess piece, he still had to plan carefully. Just as he was thinking, he saw the light in the room flicker. Suddenly, someone said in his ear, "What are you thinking about?" Xin Miao was startled for a moment and subconsciously leaned back and almost fell down. That person grabbed her arm and supported her back with one hand. After supporting her properly, he then withdrew his hand and stood up straight. Under the light, his face was unbelievably handsome, with a familiar mischievous smile on his face. He looked down at her and said, "Why are you so lost in thought? Are you thinking about how to repay me? What are you doing here?" Now that Xin Miao saw Xie Jingxing, she was too lazy to even be angry. But there was a trace of bewilderment in her heart. She had obviously instructed Mo Qing to increase the manpower outside the courtyard, but she did not think that Xie Jingxing would still be in an unguarded state. The people around him were so powerful, one could see the general trend from the small clues. The great Liang's methods were really overbearing. Xie Jingxing smiled. "I am here to collect my clothes. This afternoon at Princess Mingyan's place, Xie Jingxing took off his black cloak and gave it to Xin Miao to help her out of trouble. Xin Miao then remembered and saw Xie Jingxing looking at the ground with deep meaning in his eyes. Xin Miao came back in a hurry in the afternoon, and afterwards was anxious to see Cang Ziqing. Thus she brought Jingzhe and Guyu out after changing her clothes. That black cloak was casually thrown on a chair, but one did not know how it slipped down from the chair, and at the moment it was quietly lying on the ground, crumpled up into a ball, looking like a tragic sight. Xie Jingxing crossed his chest and said coldly, "You are really impolite." The clothes of Prince Rue of the Great Liang were at least expensive, but to be casually thrown away like that, it was even worse than a handkerchief used to wipe a table. Only Xin Miao would dare to do that under the heavens. Xin Miao was really not polite with him. "Your Highness's cloak is on the ground. Many thanks." She was even too lazy to say anything. Anyway, the imperial family of the Great Liang had money, and did not lack one or two cloaks. Thinking about it, Xin Miao swept a glance at Xie Jingxing. With such good looks, but he had to change into new clothes every day. One did not know how the Great Liang could afford to raise this prodigal son. The money in the imperial treasury were all used to make clothes. Could it be that he did not go to war because there was no military pay? Xie Jingxing looked at Xin Miao for a while and spoke with interest. "You are strange today. Inexplicably throwing a temper, and your anger is so big." He raised his brows. "Is it because of that Cang Ziqing female in the residence?" Chapter 512. Xin Miao was slightly startled and looked up at Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was in Ming Qi's uninhabited land and was very familiar with it. Naturally, he was familiar with it, as he had lived in the Ding capital since young, and was familiar with every place in the Ding capital. In addition, there was the Fengxian pawn shop behind him, which was a relay station for buying and selling information. Xie Jingxing's eyes and ears were perhaps even inferior to Fu Xiuyi's. Whatever he wanted to know, he would naturally know. "What does this have to do with you?" Xin Miao said snappily, "Your Highness Prince Rue still have the leisure to worry about other people's family matters?" Family matters? Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows as if he felt that this phrase was not bad. He said, "You seem to be very afraid of women surnamed Chang." A trace of coldness flashed in Xin Miao's eyes as she said, "What is there to fear about a relative who is seeking refuge?" Something's not right. Xie Jingxing touched his chin and swept a glance at her before suddenly bending over and carefully staring at Xin Miao's eyes. He did not feel that it was inappropriate for him to be so close to her. He pondered for a moment and said, "A woman from the Lu province. You have never been to the Lu province before. Why do you seem to understand her so much?" Xin Miao suddenly raised her eyes, and when she raised her eyes met with Xie Jingxing's. That youth's appearance was as breathtaking as usual, but his peach blossom eyes hid the sharpest blade. He said, "It is the same for Princess Ming. You have never been to the Qin country, but have a deep grudge against her." Xin Miao still did not speak. It was clearly an intimate and somewhat ambiguous posture, but her eyes gradually became cold. "You have been living in the Ding capital since young, and the furthest place that you have been to was the Shaochun city. In the 2 years that you were in the Shaochun city, you did not step foot in other places. So it is impossible to go to the Lu province, and also impossible to see the princess of the Qin country." His voice floated over from the night, bringing with it a faint chill of early winter that almost seeped into one's heart. "What do you want to say?" Xin Miao looked at him. He spoke in a low voice. His voice was elegant and mellow, seductive, but it also made one's heart palpitate. He said, "Are you Xin Miao?" For a moment, Xin Miao's entire body had a layer of goosebumps. It was as if a thin, piercingly cold wind was pouring down from the top of his head, making him feel cold in an instant. She had seen many people, relying on her experience as an empress in her previous life. Those people were just faces in front of her. There were white faces and red faces, but only this seemingly frivolous purple-robed youth in front of her was a living person, because it was impossible to see what kind of face was under the mask. Xin Miao's impression of Xie Jingxing was that in the previous lifetime he was a handsome youth who died young. In this lifetime she knew that he was unfathomable, and now she felt that he was even more terrifying. The things that she did indeed caused others to be suspicious, but Xie Jing actually suspected if she was Shen Miao. She was not Shen Miao but Empress Shen. Xie Jing Xing dared to think, and his thoughts were somewhat close to the truth. Shen Miao panicked for a moment when she felt that her secret could be seen by others. But she did not do anything. She just stared at Xie Jing Xing's face and finally smiled lightly. She often smiled, and it was a dignified and gentle smile, as if she did not care about anything. When facing Xie Jing Xing, most of the time it was insinuations and a cold smile that did not reach one's eyes. Now this smile seemed to be a magnolia that bloomed in the night, with a faint fragrance that spread over harmlessly. But that smile was only for a short moment, and very quickly her face turned cold. In this world, not everyone is like your Highness Prince Rue. Xie Jing Xing's playful smile slightly stagnated. One did not know if Shen Miao was Shen Miao or not, but Xie Jing Xing was no longer Xie Jing Xing. The little Xie Marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin, and had now become Prince Rue. Was this the same person? Perhaps others would find it strange since Xie Jing Xing did not have any relationship with the Great Liang in the past. Chapter 5:13. You are not willing to suffer a loss at all. Xie Jing Xing stood up straight, and the deep meaning in his eyes disappeared as he said with a smile that was not a smile, "It should still be Shan Miao." He seemed to be lamenting to himself, and also seemed to be talking to Shan Miao. So many secrets, it is really tiring to inquire about them. Why is Prince Rue grabbing onto me and not letting go? Shen Miao looked at him. No matter if I have a secret or not, that has nothing to do with Prince Rue. Unfortunately, I'm interested in your secret. Xie Jing Xing leisurely said, moreover I have thought about it. In Ming Qi, the only person that can be trusted is only you. Shen Miao did not get angry but laughed instead. Prince Rue is forgetful. Isn't there still Su Mingfeng and Princess Rong Xian? Xie Jing Xing smiled. Didn't anyone tell you not to mention the past? She didn't know why, but under the light, the smile on his lips was still handsome and elegant, but it seemed a little lonely. But in a blink of an eye, Xie Jing Xing looked at her and said, how do you plan to deal with Chang Zaiqing? If you beg this king can help you. Shen Miao said expressionlessly, I only beg Prince Rue not to intervene in this matter. Looks like you've already thought of what to do. Xie Jing Xing raised his eyebrows. Amazing. Shen Miao's eyes hung down and heard Xie Jing Xing speaking again. The princess of the Qin country will not leave this matter at that. There is no need to remind me. Shen Miao glared at him fiercely. One still have to thank Prince Rue for his help today. With Princess Ming's jealous temperament and being infatuated with Xie Jing Xing, seeing that Xie Jing Xing was helping Shen Miao, she was bound to vent all her anger on Shen Miao. She's no match for you. Xie Jing Xing naturally stretched out his hand to rub Shen Miao's head, but was flung away by Shen Miao as she looked at her fingers with pity. Shen Miao did not want to speak. Princess Ming did not have any brains, so she was not worried at all. The most important thing was Huangfu Hao of the Qin country. In fact, this time Huangfu Hao and Princess Ming came to the Qin country. It was because of the alliance with the Ming Qi. Ming Qi wanted to be on good terms with the Qin country because the Great Liang was eyeing covetously. No matter what, they could not allow Fu Xiuyi and Huangfu Hao to mix together. Naturally, they had to expend a lot of effort to destroy the tacit alliance between the two countries. Shen Miao's gaze involuntarily landed on Xie Jing Xing. In this chess game of vying for the throne, what kind of move was the Great Liang playing? She didn't know. She died too early, so she did not know what Xie Jing Xing's situation was like at the end of her previous life. Thinking about it, he did not die in battle, but it was like a cicada shedding its shell, returning to the Great Liang to be His Highness Prince Rue. Xie Jing Xing noticed her gaze and smiled. What are you suspecting? Shen Miao looked at him fixedly. When does Prince Rue intend to return to the Great Liang? Can't bear to part? Xie Jing Xing swept a glance at her with a smile before looking out of the window. Do not worry. One will not leave for the time being. He said, this prince also wants to see the game between Huangfu Hao and Prince Ding to the end. Shen Miao's heart moved. Xie Jing Xing said, don't you also want to see? Do not understand the meaning of Prince Rue's words. Shen Miao said one thing but meant another. Xie Jingxing bent over to pick up the black cloak on the ground. That cloak was wet from the pool water and was then casually thrown to the side. His face stiffened for a moment before he casually said, "Xin Miao, you and I are the same kind of person? Your Highness is a descendant of the heavens. This official's daughter is as lowly as dust and dare not be compared." Belittling oneself. The purple-clad youth's lips hooked up. "You are the same as this prince, born to be a superior person." Chapter 514. Until there was no longer that person's figure in the room and the candlelight seemed to gradually cool down, Shen Miao was still sitting in front of the table. Xie Jingxing's words before he left made her unable to calm down for a long time. Like this prince, one was born to be above others. Could it be that Xie Jingxing had discovered some clues? But this was not possible. She carefully thought about the interactions with Xie Jingxing in her past life. There was no interaction at all, and they did not even speak a word. Shen Miao thought about it again and suddenly found that she had wasted too much time on this matter. Thinking that Xie Jingxing had inexplicably disturbed her life, anger rose in her heart. But in the residence of Prince Rue at the other end, Xie Jingxing returned to his room. The room that he slept in was almost comparable to an exquisite bedroom. He casually threw away the cloak in his hands and wiped his hands with a silk cloth. A white thing suddenly jumped out from the corner and pounced and bit that black cloak, shaking its head in joy. Xie Jingxing looked coldly at that fur ball playing with the cloak for a while before picking it up from the ground. What kind of conduct is this? His face was filled with disdain. The white tiger cub sneezed and its claws grabbed onto Xie Jingxing's collar before being expressionlessly thrown into the nest at the side of the bed. "Tai Yi," Xie Jingxing said. A black figure swept in from the outside. "What instructions does master have?" Xie Jingxing pointed to the cloak on the ground. Tai Yi's lips twitched. That was a cloak made of black lion fur. It was hard to find even with 1,000 gold. The only black lion fur cloak in the Great Liang's treasury was ruined like this? Tai Yi wanted to shed tears of sympathy for Emperor Yonglu. "Take it out and throw it away." Xie Jingxing started to undress. Tai Mu picked up the robe in a daze and said yes. Everyone knew that Prince Rue was most fond of cleanliness and ordinary people could not touch it. This cloak was ravaged to this state. One think that Xie Jingxing would not want it anymore. And no one dared to secretly keep the things that Prince Rue had worn before. Tai Yi seemed to see the silver flowing away. Just as he walked to the door, he heard Xie Jingxing saying, "Wait." Tai Yi turned his head back. Xie Jingxing hesitated for a moment before frowning. "Never mind. Clean it and keep it." Tai Yi stared blankly for a moment before happily nodding his head. Carrying the cloak, he quickly left the room. His face was filled with gratification. Good. Master finally knew not to be arrogant and lascivious. This was the best. Only then could he support the future of the entire Great Liang. The Ding capital welcomed the first snow of this winter. Snowflakes were scattered all over the ground. The snow-white snow was extremely cute. When winter came, the women on the streets began to change into coats and skirts embroidered with all kinds of patterns. They also wore all kinds of velvet cloaks and cloaks, looking extremely elegant. On such a snowy day, holding an oil paper umbrella and walking alone, if one's face was as beautiful as a lotus flower, one would look even more elegant. In the western courtyard of the Shen residence, there was someone standing in front of the courtyard looking at the flying snow outside. Young Lady Qing also did not enter the room to sit. Stay outside like this and be careful not to catch a cold. The Ding capital is not as warm as the Lu province and the wind in winter is very cold. Someone spoke with a smile. She was wearing a light yellow robe with big sleeves and a light red Rui 100-bird skirt. She was graceful and her hair was combed into a chow bun. If one were to look at her from afar, one would think that she was a young female of some family. This person was Chen Rochio. That person standing at the side of the courtyard turned her head over. She was wearing a simple snow-green long robe that was elegant and moving. Chang Ziqing smiled. It rarely snows in the Lu province, and it is rare for it to snow a few times in a winter. The snow in the Ding capital is really cute. One wanted to take a good look. Chen Rochio smiled. Appreciating the snow and discussing wine is an elegant matter. Young Lady Qing is indeed elegant, she said. In the future, if young Lady Qing were to stay in the Ding capital, it would not be rare to see it a few times. It snows every year, and it is so cold. Chapter 5:15. Song Ziqing only smiled and did not speak. Both of them were gentle and elegant, as if they were young ladies from a scholarly family. Each and every move was pleasing to the eye, as if they were a pair of sisters. Chun Roqiu pulled Song Ziqing's hands. No matter how much young Lady Qing likes the snow, one must not stay in this courtyard for too long, lest the cold air enter. There is a heater in the room. It is better to go in and take a seat. Song Ziqing did not decline, and both of them entered the room hand in hand. After entering the room, the maid served hot tea to both of them. Chun Roqiu took the lead to take a sip of the tea and smiled at Song Ziqing. I originally thought that since our Shin family is here, there would be a lack of sister to share the exquisiteness of the tea ceremony with me, but one was not able to find one. Now that you are here, I am very happy. Third foreign's kindness. Song Ziqing also smiled. Young Lady Qing's temperament is pleasing and anyone would like. Chun Roqiu said, I feel like old friends with you at first sight, and know that you are an intelligent and elegant person. You and I are so congenial. One do not know how was the discussion with my eldest Saw a few days ago? After pausing, Chun Roqiu sighed again. My eldest Saw is from a military family and do not know about these tea ceremonies, but is a straightforward and good person. One do not know if it scared you? These words had some meaning of probing. Song Ziqing gently rubbed the lid of the tea and replied submissively, everyone in physician is very good and told me many interesting things that one had never heard before. One did not avoid it because of Ziqing's identity, thus Ziqing's heart is grateful. I just knew it. Chun Roqiu nodded her head. You were so sensible and eldest Saw is also straightforward. Naturally one would be able to get along well. Has young Lady Qing seen eldest brother before? Song Ziqing shook her head. That day it was too late and General Shun had not returned to the residence, so I came back first, thinking that it would not be too late to visit another day. Chun Roqiu's smile deepened. It is also good to visit another day. After all, we are one family, and now we are all staying in the Ding capital. It is very convenient to do anything. Just as she was speaking, one saw a maid holding an invitation coming in from outside, and seeing that Chun Roqiu was also there, she first bowed to Chun Roqiu before handing the invitation to Song Ziqing's hands. Young lady, this is the invitation that the concierge sent over. Chun Roqiu's eyes flashed and smiled. Young Lady Qing had just arrived in the Ding capital not long ago and already have good friends? Now that I've sent an invitation, I wonder which family it is? Song Ziqing opened the invitation and took a look before smiling. Third foreign has misunderstood. The people that I know in the Ding capital are only the people of the Shin residence and have no friends. This invitation was sent by eldest Shin foreign. Sister-in-law? Chun Roqiu was surprised for a moment, and her gaze towards Song Ziqing was a little more surprised. It seems that eldest Saw likes you very much. Originally, when eldest Saw was living in the residence, one would rarely see her send an invitation. Finishing, she seemed to be very happy for Song Ziqing. It seems that you two really hit it off at first sight. My heart is somewhat jealous. Song Ziqing smiled. Third foreign is teasing me again. The date of this invitation is today. Chun Roqiu looked at the invitation in Song Ziqing's hands and said in surprise, Young Lady Qing is not going over to take a look now? At present. One fear that it is somewhat too early. Song Ziqing was somewhat hesitant. Chun Roqiu smiled and patted her hands. What are you being shy about? One need to know that we are all one family, so just treat it as a visit. Moreover, with eldest Saw's temperament, if you push and pull like this, it would make her feel unhappy and unhappy. Why cause misunderstandings? Song Ziqing looked at the invitation and Chun Roqiu continued. Actually, to be honest with you, I also have some selfish motives. I was thinking that if you and eldest Saw are on good terms, in the future it would be much easier to explain any misunderstandings with eldest brother and eldest Saw. One still need to rely on you. She sighed as she spoke. Chapter 5:16. Third foreign must not say that. Song Ziqing quickly said. Zaiqing's heart is grateful that the Shin family took in Zaiqing. Moreover, a few days ago, I went to see eldest Shin Foreign, and she is a broad-minded person. One think that it is only a momentary misunderstanding. I will go, and if there is a chance, I will help to explain. Third Foreign need not mention that I will do the same. Chun Rochio was very pleased when she heard that. I know that you are a reasonable person. When she was speaking, she took off a bracelet from her hand and put it on Chang Zaiqing's wrist. Chang Zaiqing wanted to decline but was held down by Chun Rochio. Chun Rochio said, "This bracelet is not worth a lot of money, but the workmanship is exquisite. I know that you are not greedy and would not accept expensive things. Keep this bracelet. Eldest brother might be in the residence today, so it would not be wrong to dress up properly to meet eldest brother and eldest Saw. One cannot let others look down on the Chang family, right? Even if one do not think for yourself, one must think for the Chang family." These words were said from the bottom of her heart, and every word and sentence were for Chang Zaiqing. Chang Zaiqing did not decline again and said, "Third Foreign's good treatment of Zaiqing. Zaiqing will remember it in her heart." "What are you saying? We are all one family." Chun Rochio stood up and looked outside. "Young lady Zaiqing should tidy up first, and I will not disturb. Go out while the snow is not heavy, so that one can return early at night." She then carefully instructed the two maids who were serving Tsang Zaiqing on some matters before walking out of the door. After Chun Rochio left, Zhao Mama kept Chang Zaiqing's invitation and said, "Young lady really want to go to the Shin mansion to meet that eldest Shin Foreign?" See. Once Chun Rochio left, Chang Zaiqing's smile faded. Even though it was still warm and elegant, it was as if it was a different person and was not as sincere as before. That eldest Shin Foreign, Zhao Mama was somewhat hesitant, is a good person. Chang Zaiqing sat in front of the table and opened a small box of rouge. She pursed her lips. The color of the rouge was very light, and with such a shallow layer, it was like a faint pink color coming from her lips, making her look even more charming. He's a good person. I can rest assured now. Granny Zhao breathed a sigh of relief. Yes. Chang Zaiqing looked at herself in the mirror, but one did not know if she was talking to herself or others. I am also relieved. Outside, Chun Rochio returned to Chiu Shui Yuan and held the heater in her hands before turning her head to meet Xinyu. "Mother," Xinyu said, "why do you keep running to that Chang Zaiqing courtyard these few days? I've been looking for you a few times, but you've disappeared. Why are you looking for me?" Chun Rochio caressed Shan Yu's head. Xinyu was getting older, and even though she had the countenance of a flower and the countenance of the moon, but her horizons were so high that it would be a problem to keep it on. One could not just leave it and become an old lady. Chun Rochio knew that her daughter's heart adored Prince Ding, but how would she have the means to let Xinyu marry Fu Xiu-yi? Xinyu would definitely be unwilling to be a concubine. Xinwan had been angry with Chun Rochio a few times because of Shun Yu's marriage. Chun Rochio doted on her daughter, and when Shunwan found those high-ranking disciples, Chun Rochio would think of ways to reject them. The embroidery workshop's new designs of clothes. Xinyu said, "Want to let you take a look. Which one is better?" Looking at her daughter, who was like a flower, Chun Rochio felt a headache in her heart. She said, "What is the use of these flowery looks? You are already extremely beautiful. If one has the time to do these, it is better to learn from that person in the Western Courtyard." Western Courtyard? Xinyu was puzzled. Mother is talking about that Chang Zaiqing? What is there to learn from her? Chun Rochio shook her head. There is a lot to learn. If you have 30% of her ability, then I will be assured. What kind of person was Luo Shuiyin? Even though she treated others warmly, she was not the kind of person who would send invitations to others after seeing them once. Chen Rochio and Luo Shuiyin had been sisters-in-law for so many years, but it was the first time they saw such an impatient invitation. Chun Rochio knew that Chang Zaiqing was a person that made one feel comfortable and unable to have any hostility, but to be able to let Luo Shuiyin get close like this, it was really out of her expectations. Chapter 5:17. But this was a good thing for Chun Rochio. She tapped Shun Yu's forehead and said resentfully at Iron for not becoming steel. In short, you should learn more from her in the future. It is much more useful than looking at clothes. In the Shin mansion, Guyu was combing Shun Miao's hair as she spoke. Young lady, to use foreign's name to send an invitation to that young lady of the Chang family. If foreign knew about it, would there be an accident? What is the relationship between using my mother's name and using my name? Shen Miao lightly said, after all, we are one family. But why did young lady not use her own name? Jingzhe was wiping the table by the side and was somewhat curious when she heard it. Shen Miao stole Luo Shuiyan's seal and wrote an invitation to be sent to the Shun residence, which made all the maids in the room drop their jaws in shock. It would have been fine if he had impersonated Luo Shuiyan to do something else, but to impersonate Luo Shuiyan to invite a lady who wasn't even close to him, he felt that it was a waste of talent. I don't have much of a relationship with her. Why would I invite her over for no reason? Jingzhe and Guyu looked at each other, and both of them did not know how to continue this. Yes, there was no friendship between Luo Shuiyan and Chang Zhaoqing. So was there a need to steal Luo Shuiyan's seal to send an invitation to Chang Zhaoqing? When Tian Ziqing came to visit, one did not see how happy Shen Miao was. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Since Luo Shuiyan was not around today, it was better to send the invitation earlier, as she would have to meet this young lady of the Chang family alone for a while. Luo Tan was sent away early in the morning, and only Shen Miao could make decisions in the entire residence. Just as he was thinking, he heard a manservant come in from outside to report that the young miss of the Chang family had arrived. So fast? Jingzhe was somewhat surprised. Shen Miao smiled slightly. Those who had a request naturally could not hide their ambitions no matter what. In the past, she could not see clearly because she was in the situation and did not care much about the matters of the Shen family. Now was different from the past. She wanted to see how high Chang Ziqing's skills were. Chang Ziqing was led by the servant to the main hall of the Shun mansion to wait. The servant brought the hot tea over, and she quietly sized up the Shun mansion. The Shun mansion was different from the Shun residence. Because the Shun residence was the residence of the old general, the feng shui was very particular, and in addition to old Shan foreign's habits, it was somewhat gaudy. Perhaps it was because Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan were martial artists in the Shen mansion. The courtyard was spacious, and the furnishings in the main hall were squarish, giving one a look of awe-inspiring righteousness. Even though the ornaments were simple, one did not know why, but there was a dignified feeling. The first time Chang Ziqing came here, she did not take a good look, but at this moment, she felt that there was a layer of sweat on her body. It was as if one could not help but sit upright in this place. The maids were minding their own business, and no one spoke to her. Chang Ziqing had always had good etiquette, and there was no reason to rush. Even after waiting for the tea to turn cold, there was no movement from outside. Chang Ziqing pulled a maid over and asked why Luo Shuiyan had not come out yet. Did something happen? That servant girl was also all smiles, her attitude respectful and polite. She said that she would go and ask, but with a turn of her head, she disappeared without a trace. No one knew what was going on. It was like this several times in a row, and Chang Ziqing could not sit still. The first time she saw Luo Shuiyan, she had a good grasp of the other's temperament. She had a candid temperament and was very enthusiastic when dealing with people. Why would she deliberately make things difficult for others this time? For the first time, Chang Ziqing's heart was somewhat uncertain. The maids that were coming and going seemed to be looking at her, but also seemed to not be looking at her. She finally could not sit still and wanted to get up to leave, but heard someone laughing behind her. Qingyi has waited for a long time. Really apologize. Just now one wet one's clothes in the room and had to freshen up and was delayed for a moment. Chang Ziqing was startled for a moment and quickly stood up, but saw a few maids following behind as Shen Miao walked in from outside the door. The young female was wearing a jade green embroidered feather cloak and had a heater in her hands. Most likely she felt warm after entering the room and took off the cloak, revealing a dark purple embroidered long coat and skirt. It was a very gorgeous and complicated pattern, but it was in such a heavy purple color. What was rare was that she did not wear it at all, and instead had an air of nobility. That dark purple color made the young female's skin as white as jade. She was petite and delicate, but it was as if she was walking in the 9 palaces. Every step she took was filled with smiles, and one's wealth gave birth to lotuses. Chang Ziqing's mind felt dizzy for a moment. She had seen a lot of people and had also seen a lot of females who said that they had a graceful bearing. including Shen Yu, who was held up by Chenrochio without batting an eyelid. But only this Shun Miao could give her a feeling of amazement. That day it was still all right when she was beside Luo Shuiyan, but today she appeared alone and directly stole all the limelight, making one feel pressured. Fifth young lady? Chang Ziqing's gaze swept behind Xin Miao. No need to look. Xin Miao smiled gently. It was me who sent you the invitation. Chapter 5:18. It is me who sent you the invitation, Qing Yi. Chang Ziqing was startled and asked with a puzzled smile. Fifth young lady is. Last time Qing Yi came and left in a hurry, so I did not have a good chat with Qing Yi. Qing Yi said that she would come over another day, and I waited for a long time but did not see any movements from Qing Yi, so I could only send the invitation myself. Fearing that my seal was not appropriate, I used my mother's seal. Qing Yi would not blame me, right? Chang Ziqing looked at the young female in front of her. She was smiling gracefully without any awkwardness at all. If one were to get entangled, it would seem that Chang Ziqing was being calculative. Chang Ziqing immediately smiled. How could it be? It is Chang Ziqing's luck to be invited by fifth young lady. As she spoke, she quietly sized up Shen Miao. Last time when she returned to the Shen residence, even though Shen Miao was not cold to her, it was not considered warm, and there were even a few places where she was rude. For an inexplicable and sudden invitation, Chang Ziqing's heart was secretly vigilant. It is very cold in the main hall. Qing Yi better go to my room to sit. Shen Miao smiled as she stood up. It is not far from here. I really cannot stand the cold wind. Chang Ziqing complied obediently. When they reached Shen Miao's room, Shen Miao let the maid serve tea and pastries. The stove was burning brightly, and a small gap was opened in the window before closing the door. The room was warm, but it was not stuffy. Shen Miao pushed the teacup in front of Chang Ziqing. Chang Ziqing smiled as she picked it up to take a sip, and her expression suddenly became somewhat strange. This is Zhu Dan tea. The taste is very bitter and astringent without any fragrance. Most likely Qing Yi is not used to drinking it. Shen Miao smiled as she explained. Chang Ziqing's expression slightly paused. She was somewhat puzzled by Shen Miao's actions. The way to treat a guest was naturally to bring out the best tea leaves. Why would one use such poor quality tea to treat a guest? Was it to humiliate her? But Shen Miao's expression did not seem to be like this. Although this tea is bitter, it is very good for the body. Drinking it in winter can drive away the cold and keep warm. My father and brothers are all martial artists, so they always drink vermilion pill tea in winter. Later on, the whole house drank this kind of tea. Shen Miao looked at Chang Ziqing. Qing Yi is from a scholarly family and most likely do not like to drink this kind of tea, but our military family is not so particular about it. Chang Ziqing waved her hands and smiled. Fifth young lady must be joking. The Chang family is just an ordinary family. Even though this Zhu Dan tea is bitter, it is very good to people. After drinking it for a long time, one would not feel bitter. Shen Miao shook her head. It is easy to force it for a while, but it is difficult to force it for a lifetime. Chang Ziqing was surprised for a moment, and only felt that there was more to Shen Miao's words, and could not help but look at Shen Miao. Shen Miao smiled. Speaking of which, one heard that Qing Yi is currently living in the Shen residence. Are the people in the Shen residence treating Qing Yi well? All are very good. Chang Ziqing smiled. They all take good care of me. You and third aunt are like-minded, so you must be very compatible. Shen Miao smiled. Third aunt has always liked to play with words, and in the beginning third Shu was very respectful towards her because of this. One think that you have also seen how well third Shu treats third aunt. In the entire third household, third aunt is the matriarch of the household. She then sighed. It is a pity that third aunt does not have a D son. If there was a D son, one need not be so worried. Chang Ziqing had stayed in the Shen residence for so long and naturally knew that because of the matter of the third household not having a son, Chenrochio and old Shinforen were in conflict almost every day. It was just that she did not expect that Shen Miao would actually say such words to her. Shen Miao was after all an unmarried young lady, so it was somewhat awkward to talk about the matters of the third household. However, when Shen Miao spoke, her expression was natural, as if it was not something not worth saying. This made Song Ziqing unable to differentiate whether Shun Miao was precocious or naive. Chapter 519. Third foreign is so kind that in the future there will be many children and grandchildren. Song Ziqing followed Shun Miao's words and said, "One always loved to compare our first household with the third household." Shin Miao picked up the teacup and blew the tea leaves on the surface before smiling. One is civil and one is military. In the courtyard, there is only one matriarch, but our residence is still all right as at least there is my eldest brother. My eldest brother is about to reach the age of marrying, and in a few days, one will pick a good marriage in the Ding capital for him. With a sister-in-law and a nephew, this room is considered lively. Shin Miao seemed to be somewhat proud, but in the third household, it is not as lively as our first household. Song Ziqing first thought that Shin Miao was childish and was angry with the third household, but after listening to the complete sentence, she seemed to have thought of something and her expression changed. Correct. In Shun Xian's residence, Luo Shuiyin was stupid and direct and did not know how to use her heart. The inner courtyard was clean, and it was not difficult to tidy it up. But she almost forgot that there was still a Shinxiu. Shinxiu was Luo Shuiyin's eldest son and was young and promising. If he married a powerful wife, even if she did not fight for it, she would be suppressed by 3 points. Shin Miao saw the change in Song Ziqing's expression, and her eyes became slightly cold. In the previous lifetime, Song Ziqing finally stayed in Shun Xian's inner courtyard, and at that time Shinxiu was already unable to make it. Shin Miao married into the residence of Prince Ding, and there was almost no one in the entire inner courtyard that could be a threat to Song Ziqing. With such smooth sailing, how would Song Ziqing not grasp the opportunity? But now it was different. Shinxiu was perfectly fine and a healthy eldest son was here. Thus the possibility of Song Ziqing becoming a wife was forever empty. This female who liked to haggle and clearly weigh the pros and cons, what kind of path would she choose? She picked up the pastries on the table and smiled. It is really a pity for Third Shu. Originally, when grandfather was still alive, he seemed to have said that Third Shu was the most intelligent in the Shin family. He has a dignified appearance and is literate. If he had a son, he would definitely be as smart as him. It's a pity that there's only one woman in the third branch, second older sister. Second older sister is now at the age where she's about to get married. When second older sister gets married, there will only be third uncle and third aunt in the third branch. Song Ziqing was originally listening absent-mindedly, but when she heard that, her heart moved. Speaking of which, the situation in Shen Xian's and Shun Wan's inner courtyard was similar. Both of them only had one woman, and both of them were so-called lovers. It was just that Shun Yu was older than Shin Miao by 2 years, and Shin Yu was about to get married. It was even rarer for the third household to not have a son. Aunt Xing and third aunt's temperament is similar, and their expressions are also somewhat similar. They are both gentle and understanding, and they know a lot of elegant things. Those who don't know would think that you are a pair of sisters. Shin Miao faced Song Ziqing's probing gaze and spoke unhurriedly, but from what I see, Qing Yi is more outstanding than third Shun because Qing Yi is younger. Song Ziqing's lips unconsciously rose. She also knew that the people in the Shen residence compared her with Chen Roqiu. Like Chen Roqiu, they were all scholarly and delicate talented females, but what Shin Miao said was right. No matter how beautiful a female was, when they get older, even if they had great talent, their colors would wither. In comparison, Song Ziqing was more moving. Moreover, Chen Roqiu considered herself as a daughter of a noble family, and her actions were somewhat virtuous. But Song Ziqing grew up in a commoner's family and knew how to compromise. When it was time to lower one's head, one would lower one's head and look at others' face. Thus everyone would praise her. Song Ziqing's gaze was deep as she thought that she was stronger than Chen Roqiu. Shin Miao picked up the tea to drink. The taste of the tea was astringent, but she drank it like honey and revealed a warm smile. Chapter 520. Song Ziqing was already 26 years old, and for females of this age in the Ding capital, when talking about marriage, most of them would be the second wife of others, and still have to raise up a child that did not crawl out of her stomach, making it difficult for a stepmother. Moreover, The Chang family was from a small family. Even if they relied on the name of the Shin family, it would be difficult for them to marry into a noble family. This Chang Ziqing abandoned her husband and son to seek a better life, so how would it be that easy to satisfy? Originally, it was just that she did not discover Shenwan, but since Zhang Ziqing was best at weighing the pros and cons, Shen Miao would directly spread out the loopholes that Zhang Ziqing could find in the third household and let Zhang Ziqing make her own choice. Chang Ziqing's expression was fluctuating, and her heart was in a mess. Shen Miao's suggestion evoked another thought in her mind, and some things that she had not discovered before came to her mind. That's right. Since Shanwan liked Chen Rochio's temperament, and she was better than Chen Rochio in every aspect, how could Shenwan not like her? Compared to Shen Xian, who was a martial artist, Shenwan was a modest gentleman and still had his grace, which made her feel more at ease. But how did today's matter suddenly become like this? She originally wanted to listen to Chen Rochio's words to test Shen Xian. She originally had her eyes on Shen Xian, but in the end, why did she turn to deal with Chen Rochio? It was because Shen Miao kept talking about irrelevant things that distracted her. It was Shen Miao. Shen Miao? Chang Ziqing suddenly looked at Shen Miao. The purple-clothed girl sat in front of the window. The snow outside had already stopped. The sun came out and shone on the side of her face, which was as white as jade. Her neck was slender. She held the teacup in her hand and slowly sipped on it. However, there was a kind of undetectable majesty to it. Chang Ziqing shuddered. It was as if she had just realized that from the beginning till now, she was the one who was led by the nose by Shen Miao. Shen Miao hammered to the east and hammered to the west. She seemed to be speaking casually, but with a few words, she had directly led the clues to Chen Rochio. Shen Miao's every sentence made Chang Ziqing think of the third household. This girl was definitely not stupid or naive, but more like a monster. When Zhang Ziqing thought of the first time she came to the Shin mansion, Shen Miao was rude a few times and her heart kept on jumping. Could it be that at that time Shen Miao already knew what she was planning, so the rude things were actually intentional? Was this the reason why he invited her here today? Shen Miao looked at her and smiled. Aunt Qing, why are you sweating? Do you feel hot in the room? Chang Ziqing suddenly recovered to her senses and looked at Shen Miao with 120% of her attention before smiling. Most likely, Shen Miao lightly said, if the windows are closed too tightly, the room would be as uncomfortable as spinning a cocoon around itself. It is better to open the windows as it is much cooler outside. She instructed Jingji to open the windows before looking at Chang Ziqing. Qing-yi, am I right? Fifth young lady is right. Zhang Ziqing forced a smile and looked at Shen Miao's smile with some fear. Her thoughts were hidden so deeply, but Shen Miao only saw her once and understood what she was thinking in her heart. Such a person was a monster, a graceful bearing. Zhang Ziqing rejoiced that she discovered it early. If she really entered Shen Xian's inner courtyard, Zhang Ziqing really did not have the confidence to deal with such a monster. Shen Miao smiled without a care. She had clearly told Zhang Ziqing that if one wanted to enter her father's courtyard, one must first see if one could deal with her. If one could not, then one would treat it as dying here. One feared that one's path back would be sealed, and one would see who was spinning a cocoon around themselves. Zhang Ziqing would not take risks as she had always found the most advantageous and safest way. Sure enough, after speaking with Zhang Ziqing for a short while, Zhang Ziqing said that she wanted to leave. Naturally, Shen Miao would not keep her, and after Zhang Ziqing left, Guyu asked curiously, why is that young lady of the Chang family acting strangely, like she was hiding from something? Who scared her? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.